Welcome to What's Math. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share my videos. This video will focus on factoring with an emphasis on quadrinomials. Quadrinomials are four terms and we're going to factor them by grouping. Step 1. Underline the first pair and circle the second pair. Step 2. Simple factor both pairs of expressions. Step 3. Your answer will be in the format of outside times inside. Example, factor 7x squared minus 2xy plus 21xz minus 6yz. Step 1, we're going to underline the first pair and circle the second pair. Then we want to simple factor both pairs of expression. So if I simple factor the first one, it will be 7 times x minus 2 times x times y. Now I need to find out what does both terms have in common. And I can see that they both have an x in common. That would be the greatest common factor for that pair. And the greatest common factor goes on the outside and everything goes in, the remaining goes inside of a parentheses. And we do it from left to right. So it's going to be x, open parentheses, 7x, followed by a minus, followed by 2y. Now let's do the second pair. It's going to be 7 times 3 times x times z minus 3 times 2 times y times z. And we're going to check to see what both terms have in common. I can see that they have a 3 in common. I can also see that they have a z in common. So the greatest common factor for the second pair would be 3z. So they have a 3z in common and the remainder goes inside of a parentheses, which will be 7x followed by a minus followed by 2y. Remember, your answer is going to be the outside times the inside. And we look at the outside from left to right. So it started off with an x followed by a plus 3z. And what's inside of the parentheses was 7x minus 2y. And that would be your final answer. Note, 7x minus 2y times x plus 3z is also correct. The order of the parentheses is not important because it's multiplication. Example, factor 4ab squared plus 20a squared b minus 11bc minus 55ac. The first thing we want to do is to underline the first pair and then circle the second pair. We need to simple factor both set of pairs. So the first I'm going to analyze the 4 and the 20 and I realize that 4 is the greatest factor for both 4 and 20. So I'm going to simple factor using the 4. So it's going to be 4 times a times b plus 4 times 5 times a times b. They both have a 4 in common. They also have one a in common and they only have one b in common. So the greatest common factor for the first pair is 4ab. And everything that is remaining uncircled will go inside of a parentheses. So it's going to be 4ab, open parentheses, is then followed by a b, a plus sign, then a 5a. And remember, we do it from left to right. Now let's simple factor the second pair. And we realize it's going to be negative 11 times b times c minus 5 times 11 times a times c. We notice that they have 11 in common. They also have a c in common. And this is super important. They both have a negative sign in common. So now that the sign is circled between them, we need to use a plus sign to separate them. So my greatest common factor for the second pair is negative 11c, followed by a b, And to go to the second part of the term, it will be plus 5a. Key thing to note is that the both parentheses should always be the same. And your answer will be the outside times the inside. So going from left to right, outside is 4ab minus 11c, and inside the parentheses was b plus 5a. And that would be your final answer. Note, b plus 5a times 4ab minus 11c is also correct. The order of the parentheses is not important. Let's go ahead and check for understanding. Factor 12a cubed minus 4a squared b plus 21ad minus 7bd. Solution. Factor 12a cubed minus 4a squared b plus 21ad minus 7bd. We first want to underline the first pair. We circle the second pair. We're going to simple factor each of them. We can see between the 12 and the 4. The 4 is the biggest number that is common to between both numbers. So therefore it will be 4 times 3 times a times a times a minus 4 times a times a times b. I can see that both terms have a 4 in common, and they also have 2 a's in common. So the greatest common factor for the first pair is 4a squared. And everything else goes in the parentheses, so it starts from left to right. So it will be 3a followed by a minus followed by a b. We're going to simple factor the second one, and we can see that 7 is the biggest number that they have in common. So it's going to be 7 times 3 times a times d minus 7 times b times d. So we notice that they have a 7 in common, and they also have a d in common. So the greatest common factor for the second pair is 7d followed by 3a minus b. And your answer is the outside times the inside. So therefore it's going to be 4a squared plus 7d times 3a minus b. And that's your final answer. Please subscribe to my channel, click that little bell for further notification, like and share my videos. If you like what you saw in my video, feel free to buy me a cup of coffee. It's not mandatory. Thank you in advance.